Welcome to SAP TechEd 2020 on Channel 1, SAP's annual tech conference. I'm utterly excited to welcome you to the Developer Lab. My name is Max.
And my name is Menina. Welcome.
Menina, I don't want to waste any further more time. What do we have in the next hour?
We have a lot of developer content coming up in this hour. So it is a developer keynote that is waiting for you, made by developers for developers. So I think it's an awesome fit. Perfect, no?
Yeah, absolutely right. And we have a lot to cover. That's why I'd like to introduce you to the story, what you're gonna see in a couple of seconds. We have a fictional, mid-sized company producing paper straws. Because of their 10 years anniversary, they plan to provide a special action. For every placed sales order in their S/4HANA system, they do a donation in order to plant trees. We have 3 developers, and they were tasked to build their solution on SAP Cloud Platform in order to avoid any customization and custom coding on the S/4HANA system. Who do we have with us?
Yeah, we have 3 developers with a very diverse skill set. So let me introduce them to you. We have Rich Heilman. He's a well-known ABAP developer. Then there's DJ Adams. He's not only the terminal guy, but someone that shifted focus from ABAP to SAP Cloud Platform, Cloud Application Programming Model. And then we have Kevin Musick, who is the cloud native developer. We're looking forward to hearing from them, right?
Yes, absolutely. What can our audience do in case of questions?
True. So I'm sure there will be questions coming up. All you need to do is go to sapteched.com, and from there you will find the session in the session catalog. If you want to search for it, it's DK100, the Developer Keynote. And the good thing about it is that the guys in the video, but also the entire team behind it, will be there supporting you and answering your questions live. So it's your opportunity to ask questions.
What you will see is their project's very first sprint review, where they show what they've built so far. Let's have a look at the keynote with the theme, all developers welcome.
We have this queue called ABAP queue pointing to the ABAP side and deserializing my ABAP queue subscriptions. So this ABAP webhook sub, right?
Correct.
Oh, thank you.
Can I do that on the command line as well?
For you command line nerd, you can of course do that over kubectl.
There's so many mental and philosophical connections between CAP and RAP, you know.
Hey, Rich, can you turn your camera on?
All right, is that better now? Can you see me?
No.
Hey team, so before we dive into the individual components, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I'm going to kick things off at one end, which is the emitter end. I'll talk about that in a second. And we should see things change here in the front end. Okay, now the front end is where our lovely developer details are. We've got at the moment, let's just remember that 374840. We should see a change on that shortly. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to manually publish an event message to the sales order created topic. I'm going to use a shell script for that. That's exactly the same topic that will be published for real when we get access to our SAP S/4HANA cloud system. It's for when a sales order is created, right? So I'm going to do that manually, and we should see that go all the way through the brain, the ABAP stack for the charity, your converter, Kevin, and so on. So let me just, before we start, just make sure everything's okay. We've got, for example, our sales order API. We've got some sales orders in there. I think I'm going to use like sales order 22 for this first kickoff thing, right? There is the URL for the conversion service, your conversion service, Kevin. Sales amount 100 gives us 20 credits. That's all nice. There's a little bit of stuff in the brain just for monitoring purposes. So that's that thing there. And also right now, we can see that the CAP brain, which is this thing here, is listening to the sales order created topic, which I'm about to emit an event message to. And also your stuff, Rich, the ABAP queue is listening on that other topic. So let me kick things off. Let's go to the Keynote Analytics page, 374840, and I'm going to say emit 22. That should publish an event message to that topic sales order created, which it has done. And if we go back across, I'm going to hit refresh on here, 374840. There we go, 515,240. So that is basically a start to end, really quick start to end for all of these components here. So that kicked off with the blue arrow there, and we ended up on the front end. So the whole flow starts out in our SAP S/4HANA cloud system, right? And we've got two pieces to the picture. We've got the sales order data available via a public API, and there's that business event that we looked at just now. Regarding the API, I found everything I needed on the SAP API Business Hub, on the Business Hub, right? So here we go, sales order. This is basically how I found it. It was pretty easy, to be honest. We've got an application to application one, there's a SOAP API, but this is the one we want to the A2X, the A2X users. That's the OData API. I just noticed, by the way, that there's a whole load more APIs in here for SAP S/4HANA.
Yeah, that's our the S/4HANA on-prem support as well.
Ah, cool. So we got both flavors now. That's awesome.
Yep.
So let me just show you the cloud API. So this is actually what we need, the sales order header. That's so that anybody, including the brain, for example, the brain needs to go and get the sold to party and the sales order header, basically. So that's what we need that for. So we've got exactly what we need from an API perspective. If you look at the details of the API, this is one of the things that finally made me decide to use CAP, which was I can grab the metadata for this API in EDMX format because OData, right? And I just imported that into my CAP application, and whammo, all of a sudden it was assimilated, and I could call this API from within my CAP business logic without even really knowing or caring it was an OData service. That was pretty awesome. That was basically the icing on the cake for me to choose CAP, because I like CAP anyway, right? Anyway, I'll show you more of that later. Down here as well, when I was looking on this page, I saw that there's actually a sandbox, because we haven't got access to the real SAP S/4HANA cloud system yet. We're still waiting for that. So there's a sandbox, and that's what we've been using. Now, when I first tried it, I couldn't figure out what was going on here, but basically you need an API key to authenticate, to credentialize every single call, right? And the API key I found in your preferences, you get one right here, okay? So what I did, rather than make myself and make you inject our own API keys, I built basically a reverse proxy, simple reverse proxy that sits in between any incoming calls and that sandbox, right? And this reverse proxy injects the API key into a header. I'm using the app router because I know the app router and I can configure it really nicely with xsapp.json, any incoming requests. I want to route to the destination behind that API hub sandbox, which is basically the sandbox system itself. And in fact, just going to inject the S/4HANA cloud part to the path to each request as it goes through. But basically, this line is the most important, right? Basically, I want to stick the API key on a header that goes in. And that's why this works. That's why this thing works. So this is all running, by the way, thanks to you, Kevin, on the Kima runtime on SAP Cloud Platform. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that later, but basically that's what it's all about.
So DJ, the S4 mock reverse proxy, the whole purpose for this is just simply to grab any incoming request and attach the API key and then forward that to the API hub. So we really never have to deal with the API key when we're calling the services.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, all I'm doing is using this before request handler to inject that extra header. And that's it. So you don't have to care. I don't have to care. It's nice. So that's the Sandbox API sales order part. So now just a quick word on the emitter, which we've already used just before, right? It's dead simple. Let's have a look. The script uses the messaging API of the event bus that we're using. And the messaging API is protected with OAuth 2.0 client credentials. So first of all, I need to grab some client credentials from a service key so I can request an access token. It's basically as simple as that. And then I'm just going to send a payload in the event message to that sales order topic. And this is what the payload looks like. It looks pretty cool and professional, right? But I didn't make it up. I had to look around. And in fact, over in the API hub, let's have a quick look at that there. Over in the API hub, there are cloud events defined. And this is where I got the information from. So we got the spec version, the type, the source, the ID, all the stuff I need, including the individual single property in the data part, which is the sales order ID, right? So that's there. I wasn't really sure what to put in the ID, so I just generated, a UUID here. And that's it. All I need to do is publish that message with a single HTTP call here, and we're done. That is the event message. So let me now emit another one. Let's go for sales order 23. There we go. So getting the credentials, access token, wham, we've made the call. That's it. API call done. What we've just done there is basically it's that blue arrow going from the emitter to the message bus.
It's pretty cool, DJ. Can I just ask a question about the technology behind the messaging bus?
Yeah, of course. I've never mentioned that. It's the SAP Enterprise Messaging Service. So we've got an instance of that running on Cloud Foundry. The service is really nice because basically I'm using the AMQP protocol. Well, I'm using the REST protocol there for the API. Rich also wanted to use the HTTP protocol for the webhook subscription. And I'm using AMQP in the brain. So it fulfills all our requirements.
It's pretty amazing.
Okay, so that was the first part. So we looked at Sandbox, we looked at the emitter, but I want to show you a little bit of what I've been doing with the brain. This is that CAP service. The brain's got to do a lot of things. For example, subscribe to event messages that are published to the sales order created topic. So let's start with that. Now, got that also, that's also in this project here. So maybe the best place to start would be actually the EDMX file. So I mentioned just now that the sales order API metadata was available in the form of EDMX. I imported that with CDS import. It assimilated that whole thing, created season from it, and I guess most importantly, it stuck something in my package.json. There's a CDS section here in package.json, and it stuck this stanza in, which basically describes that remote service, right? What type is it? It's OData. Where's the model? It's there. Where is it? It's via this destination here, which I've added these credentials, right? And the really beautiful thing is that, okay, yeah, this is OData. You can see, Kevin, there's yours actually, kind REST, okay, because it's a plain old REST service. That's all that I need to define to be able to connect to it, right? The credentials for it are in the cloud through bindings, through service bindings, but basically I can also run this locally with, using default m.json, for example, with credentials I've grabbed and, stored safely locally here. So, it works really, really nicely. As well, we've got this connection to enterprise messaging, which also uses those credentials, right? So this is all we need to connect to the instance of the enterprise messaging service. I've got some persistence here in the form of SQLite for local use and in the form of HANA in the cloud. So that's it. These are super important declarative parts of the package.json that allow me then, I'll show you in a minute, that allow me then to connect to all these different things and consume them. The service.cds is dead boring. I've got this charity entry, which basically is just what's behind here. This is how I keep track of how many sales orders I've processed for a given sold to party, because we don't want to process more than 10 or whatever for a given sold to party. So that really, is all there is to it, to the actual CDS definition. The most exciting part is in here. Let me show you. We've got, there's this sort of order limit. I don't want to process in more than 10 sales orders. I'll talk about this in a bit, right? This charity fund thing. Logging is super important. Cloud SDK is part of CAP, and so I want to set the log level to what I want, which is like loads. Even more, I want to set for local logging here. Then I've got some constants. There's the name of the topic that I'm listening on. There's the name of the topic I want to actually publish an event message to eventually, right? When I get through all this. And just like any other CAP application, here's my function that I export from this service.js module, and that's it, right? So more constants. In order to use messaging, await CDS connect to messaging. Bam, done. In order to use the sales order API, same thing. Await CDS connect to S4 sales orders. These are names referenced in the package.json, right? And in order to connect to your service, Kevin, await CDS connect to conversion service. Done, right? But that's not the most exciting part, right? So there's the messaging constant, and I can now use the on event to say basically just like getting on a read or an update or a query or whatever from an OData perspective. I've got this function to handle an incoming message. And what I do is I define a list of properties I want from the sales order header, and then I make this call, right? But check this out. Result equals await S4 sales orders. That's the object I've got from connection to that remote service. Run, select one of these columns where this condition, right? This is SQL. This is effectively SQL. So it's dead easy for me.
Wait, DJ, you're saying you can do SQL against that service? What's happening underneath?
Yeah, right. So let's just double check this, right? So there's the service. There's the service definition in the package.json. Kind OData. What the heck are we doing here? Yeah, we're doing basically something that looks and feels like SQL. Underneath, behind the scenes, CAP is doing all the work translating these to actual OData calls for us, right? So we don't have to care. It's just amazing. So I really like that. So yeah, and also I'm using these same sort of select statements and insert and so on to manage this sort of local entity, the charity fund, so I can keep track of the number of orders and everything. So we've got this little bit of logic here. This is the thing that we check whether, have we processed 10 for a given sales order, for a given sold to party, I mean. So again, we're using this sort of SQL style to, again, not only talk to this remote OData service, but also to our local persistence, right? It's just really, really nice and abstract. So that's that thing there. Let me go back to where we were. Basically, if we decide that we do want to process this particular sales order, the first thing I need to do for that is, given the total net amount, I need to go and get the charity credit amount, right? Because I want to pass that to you, Rich. But this is where you, Kevin, come in, because this is your service. And all I do there is do a converter.get, right? Pass the sales amount and wait for the response. Now that, I'm going to ask you to jump in now, Kevin, because that is this green line going over to your beautiful Go service.
So yeah, thank you, DJ, for the introduction to CAP. Let me show you the Go service where the credit calculation is done.
Cool.
For that, I have this simple Go application here, and basically it's just having this switch statement here where I do calculate the donation credits based on the incoming sales amount, and I pull that out of the URL query right here. Do the calculation, put the response back together in a JSON, and just give it back to you.
Nice.
The whole thing is running on an HTTP server, listening on port 3000, and that's basically it with the Go application. The more interesting part here is actually the Docker file, because not only the CAP service, but also this calculation service is packaged into a Docker image. And the Docker image itself, I can deploy then on the Kima runtime. So the Docker image is kind of like in the Cloud Foundry runtime, a build pack. with the difference that with the Docker image, I can actually define the environment and the operating system this image has to run in myself, which is pretty amazing. So if I want to deploy the whole thing to Kima, which by the way runs on Kubernetes, which gives us really nice scalability and is super fast and super quick. And here, this deployment YAML is important for me to actually deploy that to the Kima runtime. So we define it's a deployment. We give it a name, and here we can say how many replicas I want to have on Kima of that service. In that case, it's 1. Then the whole thing gets exposed over port 3000, and here I can set the resource limits for the memory and so on. Mm-hmm. Also here, again, you see the image, right? This is where the Docker image actually lays, so the Kima runtime knows where to pull it and then install it.
Cool. I was seeing that, and I thought that was a GitHub repo, but that's actually part of the GitHub package registry. So that's where the Docker image lives, right?
Correct. That's where it is.
Cool.
So let me show you the whole thing in the Kima console itself. So if we just go back here, you can actually see there are 3 deployments, and those are the 3 deployments I deployed in there. One is the S4 mock, the calculation service itself, and the brain, the cap part. And the cool thing is, because I was talking about scalability, I can actually, if we want to scale it up at some point, I can actually just go in here, say edit, and then where the replicas are, I can just say 5 and update. And if I go into the pods here, I can see it spinning up those pods, which is pretty amazing. So this is how
Kevin, can I do that? Can I do that on the command line as well? That would be preferable for me.
For you command line nerd, you can of course do that over kubectl from the command line.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, right. The last part here is what's actually pretty cool is if I don't want those pods anymore, I can actually go ahead and just delete them one by one or all of them together without the user ever seeing any downtime, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And you just saw it, it's terminated and it's gone. And with that, it's pretty much the converter service. So back to you, DJ.
Thanks. Okay, cool. So with that in mind, let's go back to the brain, to where we get the results from that charity conversion. And let's just complete the picture of what else the brain is doing. And then we can hand over to you, Rich, with this new event publication to this topic here. Anyway, so that's where we left off. That's where I called your service. So the only other thing to do now, before I sort of let go, is publish this messaging event to internal charity fund increased. Now we can change the name of that topic if we want. I thought, well, it's internal. I've made it up. I've used again sort of the Business Hub based cloud events reference here to sort of make up a new event. And I'll show you that in a second. All I do, once I've got the conversion amount from Kevin's Go service, I get the creation date and turn that OData v2 wrapped epoch value into a nice year month date, especially for you, Rich, just for you.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. John Postel is really amongst us in spirit, right? And anyway, all we've got to do now is basically coordinate on this new event message. So what is this? This is the charity fund increased thing, right? Now, in events.js, which is in the same directory as the service.js implementation file, this is where I decided to put the implementation of this new custom event. The increased function inside the charity fund object that I export, spec version, type, data content, all that good stuff, right? And I've got a source where it's coming from, i.e. this cap brain service. And the payload is basically here, right? The payload is sales order, cust ID, creation date, credits from Kevin, and the sales org as well, right? So I bundle that up into an event data object, and get this, you thought the SQL for the OData was good. Check this out, messaging emit, that's it. Wrap it in a transaction, basically throwing out an event up into the air to the topic. what was the topic? The topic was, where's that definition now? Yeah, okay, so it's internal charity fund increased. That's it. And it just so happens, right, that Rich, you've got a queue subscribed exactly to that topic. So that's it. That's basically what that blue arrow is there.
Okay, so thanks, DJ. So basically, we're going to start in the message bus here, and we're starting at this blue arrow here. So this is basically where we're now moving into the ABAP environment, more specifically the SAP Cloud Platform ABAP environment, also known as Steampunk. So the first thing we want to do is take a look at this this webhook subscription that we're subscribing to this particular topic, internal charity fund increased. So let's hop over to enterprise messaging. And again, we have this queue called ABAP queue. And then within the queue subscriptions, we have ABAP queue here. And again, we're listening for any messages coming in on the topic internal charity fund increased, which DJ talked about, right? So then let's take it one step further, and we want to do something. We want enterprise messaging to trigger something when a message comes in through this queue for this particular topic. And what we can do is create a webhook subscription, which I've done here. So this ABAP webhook sub, right? So if we look at this, I already pre-configured this one, and basically it's triggering this HTTP service on the ABAP side, right? We'll take a look at this in a second, but that's basically all the configuration I need for my webhook. I can click the create button here and give it a name, and select the queue that I'm attaching it to. And then here I just provide the webhook URL, again, pointing to the HTTP service on the ABAP side, set the authentication, and I'm good to go, right?
Nice.
So that's the enterprise messaging. So let's flip over and actually look at the HTTP service on the ABAP side. And I'm working with ABAP development tools in Eclipse here. So let's look at the HTTP service. So I have this service here. And again, this is the URL that we just saw in the webhook subscription. And then I have my handler class here, right? So if we dive into our handler class, and DJ showed us earlier the payload that he's sending for this message. And this is exactly what I'm expecting here. I always tend to put what I'm expecting inside my implementation code so I can refer to it as I'm going through my coding. So again, here I'm specifically interested in this section of data, right? So the sales order, customer ID, creation date, credits, and sales order. And what I'm doing in my post method down here below is simply getting the text from the request coming in and deserializing that JSON into my ABAP structures here. So LS payload. LS payload has this structure here, and it's a one-to-one match to this JSON structure here, right? So once I have that in an ABAP structure, I'm simply doing a modify against the underlying database table. And if I was using the ABAP RESTful programming model way of updating this table, I could of course use EML against this as well. Keep it simple. We're going to use a modify directly against the database table itself. Okay.
Actually, that reminds me, I've noticed that this is in a when post, right? So does that means then that the message bus is sending post requests to the webhook endpoint, not get,
absolutely.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
So again, once we're updating this table, let's take a look at the underlying table. Let's see here, open data preview. And you'll notice that the two sales orders that you emitted earlier, DJ, they're showing in the table. So they've come all the way through the process, and we're storing them locally here. It's important to understand that we're not persisting any data that we don't really require. We're persisting customer name or things like that. We don't want to in fact store that. We only want to store the keys that are vital for our processing. So like customer ID, creation date, and things like that. So not duplicating that data across multiple systems is the point here, right? Mm-hmm. So now that we have our data in our table, we want to expose this data using the ABAP RESTful application programming model and create an OData service that can then be consumed by our user interface, right? And the first things that we want to do here is create our our views, our interface views for our business object. So our business object being customer donation credits, right? So let's go ahead and open up this particular view. Again, here I'm doing a select against our database table. I'm bringing in I want the sales order, the customer ID, creation date, and here's a calculated column where I'm just interested in the year and month. So doing a substring here and concatenating just the year and month, so that I can use that as my grouping for my
for the aggregation. Yeah.
Yep. And then the credits and the sales org. So this is my lowest level business object, right? So we want to create views on top of this lowest level, and one of which I want to create a reporting view, right? So let's look at that reporting view. Again, doing the select against that lowest level business object here, and I want customer ID, and I want that year and month column, and then I'm doing a sum on the credits column to give me the total credits grouped by customer ID and the year and month. So I'm doing that aggregation so that we can expose this data into the user interface, so the user interface doesn't have to do that number crunching. We can do that for them, right? Mm-hmm. So the next section of this is where we actually want to service enable this this data. And first thing that we like to do here is create a projection view over top of our interface view. And that's what I have here. So as projection on our reporting view, and I'm exposing customer ID, again, the year and month for creation date. And then we have a virtual column here called customer name. Now, I said earlier that we're not persisting any type of that data where it's not part of keys and we're not using for processing. But in this case, we want to give this to the user interface. Well, how am I getting this? Well, I'm using a virtual element here where we're doing the implementation of that in this class here. So customer master. So let's jump over to that real quick. Customer master.
So actually, Rich, just a question. So basically, everything that you're doing for this is outside of the S4 HANA cloud system, right? You know, it's all here, and anything that needs to be is on the fly. We're not changing anything.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is an extension outside the core, so we're not touching anything. We're only extracting data from the core and doing our processing here as an extension. Absolutely. Yep.
Beautiful.
So as I was saying, the customer master implementation where I get my customer name, I could very well just make a call back to the original mock service using the HTTP client classes that are available in Steampunk. But I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach and use what we refer to as the service consumption model. And let's take a look at that real quick. And this is really cool. This is very similar to some of the functionality that you showed in the CAP, DJ, where basically I grab the EDMX file and I use the wizard here in ABAP Development Tools, and it generates a proxy for me, which is very cool, right? So I basically downloaded that EDMX file, uploaded it to the wizard. It generated this view for me, which is here. It generated this thing for me. I didn't have to type any of this, right? And it also gives me code snippets. So if we look at that one I actually used here, this read list, I just copy and pasted this code into my implementation class here, made a couple changes pointing it to our S4 mock service, right? And did some additional coding down here to loop through my original data and then read the business data that's coming in from that service, and then updating my customer name on the fly.
Awesome.
Right. So heading out to the original source system to bring back that customer name so that I can then publish the OData service and consume from the UI. So now that I have my data that's ready to be consumed and exposed, the next thing I have to do is create the service definition. Very easy to do. If I go to my service definition here, we can say define service, the name of the service, exposing my projection view as credits by month. And it's really that easy. But at this point, we're still protocol agnostic. So we put a service binding on top of this, which is here. Here's my service definition here. It's the binding is OData v2, right? And then I do an activation, and I can even do a preview here to see what my service would look like with a Fiori preview, or I can go directly to the service URL right there.
Right.
So we can take a look at the Fiori preview here, which is this is the actual data that's in the table here. So customer ID, customer name. These customer names are coming straight from that core. The S4HANA core, the S4 mock system, and my creation date, which is year and month, and then it's doing the aggregation on the total credits there. And then we have again the OData service here, and this is simply what I'm supplying to Kevin for the user interface side, right? So coming back to our picture here, we've talked about. We talked about subscribing to that webhook. We've retrieving additional business partner data. Again, a good, what we want to understand here is that this is a composite service, right? Exposing customer specific extension data while also reading in real time business partner data from the backend S4 system, right? And you know, really not touching the S4 core functionality, but seamlessly containing additional data from the core without copying it from anywhere. So this is where we now do this handoff to the front end.
Thank you, Rich, for your introduction. Now I know where the OData service is coming from and talking to. So let me just show you the front end of our whole application here. And before I go in, let me show you this. So this is the UI, and we've seen that in the introduction in the beginning. Basically, it's 3 integration cards. That's what they're called, and with a bunch of charts in there for analytical data. And the cool thing here is this is actually my first UI5 application I've written so far. And it was super easy to me because everything you see here was mostly declarative or written declaratively. So that's pretty cool.
We love declarative.
So the whole thing here is, yeah, right. The whole thing here is defined in the manifest JSON, and you can see I have the ID dashboard, and it's an application, and the data source itself is coming from the card manifests JSON, which I'm going into detail a little bit later. But basically, we just have a view, and this view is written in this XML file here in a declarative way. So, for example, the shell bar here with the title and the second title, which is this up here. It's just like put in here with this shell bar, and then I'm using a grid container to lay out the integration cards, and you can see them right here: card, manifest, stack column card, lines card, and the donut card. And this whole thing you're seeing down here, I have in the card manifest JSON. So you can see I've declared that in here with this extension. This is where my data is coming from, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But basically, we have the stack column, and we have the line card, and everything you see in between is just really this information here: target, total, and so on, right? And of course, the last one, the donut card.
So basically, the manifest data binding in the view is just bringing in more of this beautiful declarative stuff, right? That's awesome.
Correct. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And the only implementation code I really had to write is in this extension JSON file, JavaScript file, sorry, where I simply say here, get derived data. That's where I take the data I'm getting and then do some calculations on top of it and putting it in the format I want it to be. But the interesting part is really the get data, where I do a simple fetch request on SAP credits, process the response, do the calculation and all the number crunching up here, and feed it back to the UI. And this, what you see here, the SAP credits, is basically in this XS app JSON, where I say everything coming into that path has to be redirected to this destination wrap, which again is pointing to your service, Rich. So if I go to the SAP Cloud Platform into the destinations section, I see my rep destination here. And if I open that up, I see the URL of your service with the basic authentication and a technical user, because I don't want to bother our end users later on with authentication every time they want to view the analytics, right? So I've just maintained it in here. So every request goes into that destination that handles the authentication against your service rich, and that's basically it.
Ah, so also when Rich switches on OAuth 2 and changes the authentication for when we go to production, you can just change that here, and everything's golden.
Correct.
Beautiful.
Correct. I just go and edit, open the drop down, and I have all the beautiful authentication methods in here.
They are indeed beautiful.
Right. And that's basically it. So that's the face of our application.
Nice one, Kevin. So thanks, Kevin. That was awesome. I think we've made great progress here. This is the first time we've really got together. Of course, the other team members, Max, Marius, and Josh, they've also played a massive part in this. So thanks to them as well. But I think for a first stage point, this is brilliant. So, and the really cool thing is, like, we've got all sorts of different things that have really resonated with me. We've got all these different runtimes. We've got Kima, we've got Cloud Foundry, we've got the ABAP runtime. We've even got Shell, right? My favorite thing. Everything, apart from the things that need to be synchronous, everything's asynchronous. Everything's sort of relaxed and organized by the message bus for us, which is beautiful, right? But the most beautiful thing is that we've not had to touch. I know we haven't got access to the real thing yet, but we're not going to have to touch at all the S/4HANA cloud system, which is beautiful. One thing I really picked out today, especially from the stuff that you were showing, Rich, was that there's so many mental and philosophical connections between CAP and RAP. I thought they were worlds apart, but actually, moving from one to the other in either direction, they're close, a lot closer than I thought, which is a really nice surprise.
Yep.
Anyway, I'll schedule the next call for a couple of weeks' time. Thanks, team, and I'll see you later.
Thanks,
y'all. See ya.
Wow, what an impressive story. I think the first thing that I had in mind was who spilled that coffee and was it real or fake, but I'm sure we're getting to this later. Max, there's so much to digest and I think it was super impressive, but what's your take on it?
Well, I have two main takeaways. First, I'd really like that the team was taking this approach of less slides, more code, which really relates to me and I think to a lot of folks out there as well. Second, this all developer welcome theme is brilliant. We had so many different runtimes, different people with different backgrounds, different languages, different tools, etc.
I like that too, yeah, super. I agree with your points taken here. What I also wasn't expecting when we went through the keynote was to see so many tools like editors and IDEs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had so many, as I already said, so many different people involved. And that requires probably different tools because of different program languages, because of different preferences. But I think we're going to talk about that, not only in the expert panel later, but let's have a look at it as well, right?
Yeah, we have seen so many tools, lots to digest, and so many details. I think it definitely makes sense to have a walkthrough of what we just saw. So first, let's start with the web-based IDEs that we've seen.
Yeah. Absolutely. We've seen DJ using the SAP Business Application Studio for the JavaScript-based app router. DJ is a very big fan of the Business Application Studio, not only because it has a built-in terminal, which you could use, because it is web-based from wherever you want. You're able to install extensions. You are able to adjust the color scheme. He is using a dark color scheme in this case, and yes.
And then can we look at something that looks a bit old-fashioned?
Did he really say old-fashioned? Don't ever tell DJ that it's old-fashioned. But yes.
Sorry.
DJ was using Vim for the event emitter to send the events to the SAP Cloud Platform Enterprise Messaging Bus. Big fan of it. Let's also have a look at the wall. Big fan of it because he, as I already said, could use it for wherever he wants without very much effort. Yeah.
And then there was Kevin. Kevin, he used quite a fancy, cool tool. At least I found it fancy.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Well, I think could be probably because Kevin is the kind of like the cool kid on the block. Not only because of his cool headphones, but also he was using Go to implement the microservice to calculate the donation amount based on the sales amount. He installed Microsoft's Visual Studio Code on his MacBook, has the extensions for Go installed, and well, yeah, I think that's what I wanted to cover.
I like the colors as well. And there are quite similarities out there as well, no?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, Business Application Studio is a managed IDE by SAP. So once you go to the SAP Cloud Platform, you're able to simply activate it with a single click, and you get some pre-installed extensions. Once you go for Microsoft's Visual Studio Code, you have full flexibility, but also full responsibility. So it's not managed by SAP, obviously, but has similarities in the sense that you have extensions for languages and programming models. But to come to one point, it just shows the openness of SAP. Once again, we have seen DJ, for example, using it for his CAP implementation. So SAP provides an extension for CAP to implement using Microsoft's Visual Studio Code.
Nice. Then there was Rich. He used something completely different. What was that?
Yeah. If we had Kevin with the cool kid on the block, I think Rich is the serious guy on the block. He was using the ABAP development tools with a, let's take it that way, serious color scheme. In that case, in the project, he connected to the ABAP cloud and the trial system, but he's also using it for casual work on some ABAP on-premise systems. Yeah, I think that's the case.
Yeah, I think it was definitely good that we walked through all of the different tools that we saw, similarities and also opposites that we saw. Definitely created clarity, I hope so, also for the audience watching. Do you want to shed some light on the quite similar terms that we have, CAP and RAP? I know what CAP stands for, of course, but maybe you want to give the audience a little bit more insights into those.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be confusing in the beginning. First of all, CAP stands for SAP Cloud Application Programming Model. RAP stands for RESTful ABAP Programming Model. While they share kind of like the mindset in a sense that it's domain first-driven development, declarative approaches with CDS, core data and services, as its key ingredient. They do have different flavors in a sense that RESTful ABAP Programming Model, as the name already says, is focusing on ABAP, while CAP is available in Java and Node.js.
Perfect. If I have any more questions about that, I know where to go to. I asked Max. Anything else that you want to mention? I think there's something coming up.
Yes, absolutely. I already have sweaty hands, to be honest.
Me too.
We have a special treat for our developers out there. All the code you've just seen in the Developer Keynote is also on GitHub. Not right now, but we'll come to that in a second. I'd like to thank my team colleagues once again for a tremendous amount of work to make all of the code you've just seen available for you out there. As you can see, my colleague DJ was working until just a couple of hours ago to make that available for you. But let's have a look at what's in it. Super exciting. There are most likely some familiar bits and pieces you know from the Developer Keynote. For example, the only slide we had, quote unquote, is DJ's wonderful drawn picture on his whiteboard with explanations about the single components like the emitter he was using with his Vim editor. The charity component is rich ABAP coding. The front end, Kevin has just shown the brain brilliant name, thank you, DJ. CAP application, the converter service by Kevin. Also, what's needed to get started, what service and runtimes are included, what the API Business Hub means at that context, or which role it plays in this project, what the message bus is, what Docker is used for in this context, and also, most importantly, if you have any issues with this repository to get started, feel free, or I'd like to encourage you to open issues in this GitHub repository, and the developer advocates will be happy to support at any time. Did I miss anything with the GitHub repository? I think we are quite good.
No,
but
awesome job. Awesome job to the team, also from my side.
I thought you wanted me to publish it.
Yes.
And I'm quite excited. Hopefully the demo gods are with me. That's just, and I'm super excited to do that.
Hope your sweaty hands are not stopping you.
That's one of the things you can't really rehearse before, because I don't want to publish this thing before the keynote. So, I understand change, repository, visibility, and fire. Oh, really good. Oh, did I just change it to private? Excellent. Make the repository public.
It makes it very challenging for you, right? And super exciting for the audience to wait for it to be published, so.
And as you can see, the demo guides aren't with me. I can't make it public.
You
but anyway,
can make it
that's
public.
what
we
we're
will
here
make
for.
it public in a moment.
Definitely.
We just want you to ask more questions because the team's out there supporting you. And Max just wants to challenge you more to
Actually,
wait
that's why
until
we're
it's
here.
published.
It's live, but I think the developer advocates in the background will magically make the repository public for you. But if you've missed anything in the last 14 hours, and I, to be honest, have missed quite some things because I needed to catch some sleep, we have you covered with some highlights of the last 14 hours.
See you in a bit.
Hello, and a very, very, very warm welcome to SAP TechEd 2020. Welcome to the pre-show and welcome to Channel 1.
As you can see, it is definitely a different SAP TechEd that you might be used to from previous years. In particular, from a content perspective, we have a phenomenal amount of content for everybody, and it's session formats and items that you will be familiar with.
It has also been a fantastic journey, and along the way, they're filming also everything that's going on around us.
This is the first of our many guests to come, so it is my pleasure and honor to welcome Douglas. Douglas, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Craig. Hello, Beth. Thanks a lot for having me.
And they're here to answer your questions, and I'm so pleased to have you both here for that very reason.
I'm excited as well.
We're going to have lots and lots of questions on me from the live Q&A. When you boil it down to 3 things that you're most excited about.
You asked for 3 things out of a 48-hour non-stop program.
Will SAP deliver? Do you see SAP? What should my next learning topic be? Welcome to the TechEd house.
My favorite part of TechEd is sessions like this.
Welcome back to SAP TechEd 2020, #virtual.
Here he is. Hi, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm just blown away by the whole stage.
A lot of interesting things coming up.
We're going to have a special guest on stage.
Bring your chest up, shoulders down, and start breathing. Breathe in and out, and
So it's 2 community members talking to each other.
You can grab your popcorn, you can grab your coffee, you can grab your notebook, you can grab all your colleagues on, virtual phone calls and watch the keynote together.
I'm happy that you tuned in to our virtual experience.
I'm blown away by this.
History shows us that crisis often inspires innovation, and in times of crisis, information can save lives.
That's how it is at SAP. We continue to provide content. So we're going to see how they used SAP technology to get insights and turn those insights into valuable data.
And what we're going to talk about is how Hartmann Group is bringing data together to help save patients' lives.
I don't know about you guys, but I really love the phrase, bring technology to life.
Of course, we had a virtual beer, so not in person, of course not yet, but we will.
for the full length of that session, you're going to have the Q&A available. And you can ask questions in that chat and get answers from the experts.
Even if there's sessions like middle of the night, they will be there. So this is the great thing.
You might have noticed so far, I like to talk and I talk a lot, but now I have something super exciting.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in, and also a very, very warm welcome to this year's SAP TechEd in 2020. My name is Lena, community advocate and part of the SAP Community and Influencers team, and I am super excited to be here in the live studio in Frankfurt, currently in the Developer Lab. And look what is happening behind me. Look at that wall that is just coming up in just a sec. It's our social media wall, and it's so much happening on social media already. So thank you for tagging us, using our hashtag SAP TechEd and hashtag SAP Community. Share with us from what part in the world you're tuning in and experiencing SAP TechEd. We went global, we have a virtual environment and a virtual experience for everyone, and it's more handy than ever for you guys to participate. We have an increase in social media, and you can just use your devices right next to you from your home offices and use, for instance, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We're scrolling through looking for the highlights where you guys tag us with hashtag SAP TechEd and hashtag SAP Community. Interacting with us is super easy. You don't have to download anything or install anything. As I said, just use your usual devices. And now let's have a look what we have so far. Selected in the last couple of hours, our highlights of social media. I'd like to mention Helmut Tammen, who actually thought that we have a great virtual studio. So he was tweeting, "Great virtual studio at SAP TechEd." I cannot agree more. This is really a lovely digital setup that we have this year. He also tweeted, "Pre-session is already very interesting and entertaining. Well done, hashtag SAP." Yeah, good job to Beth and Craig yesterday on the pre-show. I really enjoyed it myself as well. Another highlight that's coming up is Hendrik Neumann. He was tweeting hashtag SAP TechEd Keynote Watch Party already with 22 community members in our virtual Apfelweinkneipe at the pre-show. He was referring to the SAP Stammtisch, which is an SAP community event driven by SAP community members, and I'm really thrilled that they continue doing so, as they're now not able to meet physically in their usual Apfelweinkneipe here in Frankfurt, but they actually came together via Zoom, I guess, and did a watch party of the keynote, and they really enjoyed it, as we all did. Raquel Cunha tweeted, "My first hashtag SAP TechEd was 10 years ago, and I'm looking forward to be part of the first virtual version." We all are. It's very exciting. For me personally, it's my first SAP TechEd, and I'm super excited to be part of it as well. Sue Cohane, one of our SAP champions, tweeted, "Kind of chuffed to see hashtag SAP champions in the background. Here in the Developer Lab, have a look. We also have SAP champions displayed in little frames, and you can follow them on SAP Community." Another one of our SAP champions, Nabit Madan, tweeted, hashtag SAP TechEd, the true power of our SAP community being discussed in the pre-show. This is awesome and motivating for each and every SAP community member. Community is a must to learn, share, grow, and network. Couldn't agree more. That is what SAP Community is all about, and I'm thrilled that you guys are sharing your thoughts with us, your feelings, and your experience with SAP TechEd so far. Please continue doing so. Thanks for tagging us with using our hashtag SAP TechEd and hashtag SAP Community. Take selfies, take pictures from wherever in the world you're tuning in. And with that being said, I'm wishing you an amazing and fantastic SAP TechEd experience in 2020. Hi, everyone. Of this year's SAP TechEd in 2020, we came up with something new that we never had before. We took the opportunity that we were all streaming in, and we wanted to give you guys a global adventure and wanted to give you the big picture of what is happening all around the world with community members experiencing SAP TechEd in 2020. We're actually having a little look now about pictures of Australia. So as the little teaser that you just saw gave it away already, the next journey that I want to take you guys with me is going down under. We're going to Australia, and more specifically to Melbourne, where I'm thrilled and honored to have one of our SAP champions, Phil Cooley, joining me here in the live studio. Phil is Chief Technology Officer at Born Digital, an SAP partner. He's an SAP ERP expert with more than 24 years of experience in this field. Recently, he is reading and working himself more into the field of SAP Cloud Platform, workflow management, and RPA. He's one of those guys who is sharing his experience and knowledge with the SAP community. He's publishing a lot of blog posts and also answering a lot of questions. He's with SAP Community for almost a decade, so he joined in the early 2000s. And he's with the SAP Champions program for more than a year. And I'm excited to find out more about it. And please join me in welcoming Phil Cooley.
Hi, Lena. How are you going?
Hello, I'm good. How are you? Lovely that you joined me.
Yes, I'm doing great, thank you. Very good to be here and very happy to be here to talk with you, and really like the live crosses globally around the world. I think it's a really great concept.
I was just about to ask, how do you like my developer lab?
Very, very cool, very slick. Yes, I like it a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of resources there, it looks like.
Exactly. We do have you guys, the SAP champions, displayed here in the background as well. And as I said, I'm really, really honored that you joined me. From where actually, so I said Melbourne, but so you have that kind of white background. Where are you exactly?
Yes, I'm in the office of Born Digital in Melbourne City, actually just in the Queen Street office. So yeah, coming to you, from the city itself.
Okay, so still at work, Phil.
Yes, you might hear some distant tram track noises as we have some Melbourne trams coming past. So hopefully they're not too loud.
Not too bad, not too bad. I can't hear anything. Have you been on a run yet today?
Not today. So I went on a run yesterday and I plan to go tomorrow morning. So yeah, really good. And I see, there's a lot of people out there as part of SAP TechEd running, which is really great. really happy with that, to keep up the fitness while tuning into all the great sessions.
Exactly, we'll come to that in a sec. We just saw the developer keynote. I actually wanted to touch base on that because I really, really enjoyed the intro. I just found it hilarious. How did you like it?
Yeah, I really liked it. The intro was, really funny. Even the advertisements for the session beforehand, riding the horses, coming in, and I thought that was really cool. And I really liked the fact that they brought together a lot of the components that I really love working with, things like SAP HANA Cloud. We saw the API Business Hub. We saw enterprise messaging, and of course, who can forget Steampunk, ABAP on Cloud Platform. So yeah, really cool. I think the whole emitter, brain, charity, that's those sort of concepts. I really like that drawing. So yeah, really interesting stuff. So it was really good to listen to that.
Cool. One of the developers in the developer keynote you know quite well, right?
Yeah, DJ. DJ, we sort of ping pong runs. DJ runs in the UK, then I run in Melbourne, then he runs in the UK. We sort of play run tag. And yeah, I had the honor of meeting him last year at SAP TechEd Las Vegas. And we actually went on a run together. So it was not only awesome to be in Las Vegas for SAP TechEd, but running with DJ was a serious highlight. So yeah, loved every minute of it.
Cool. I actually wanted to share with you guys the lovely initiative that our developer advocate DJ Adams and SAP champion Phil Cooley came up with. I just wanted to share my screen real quick with you and show you the hashtag UTFRW, the unofficial TechEd Fun Run Walk that DJ and Phil came up with. So it's about sharing your 5K run or walk with us. And you can see here in the comment section of this blog post on SAP Community that already a lot of comments came in and a lot of you guys already shared pictures with you. So this is DJ. Thumbs up for his first run. He kind of started it, and Phil also commented on staying tuned. There will be one more run from me as well. And Phil was actually sharing one of his selfies too. This is Svea actually running here in Frankfurt with the Frankfurt skyline, so to say. This is Phil. So we have Phil here already. Look at this background. That's more exciting than the Frankfurt skyline, I'd say. DJ, actually second run, very sweaty. Hendrik Neumann, who's also running in the woods. Then we have community member from Belgium running here, taking a selfie. Nabid Madan from India shared his screenshot with us. There's also a community member running in Waldorf, SAP's headquarters, and using the hashtag UTFRW here in the trunk of a tree. Even more, Martin Lang shared it with us. Thomas Young actually shared a dedication of a friend, Andreas Gauch. Yeah, look at this. So obviously, Phil, you don't have that kind of weather. It is cold in Germany. Also from Vienna turning in. So this is a great initiative. We also see many tweets using the hashtag UTFRW on social media. Great initiative. I hope that all of you guys are joining DJ and Phil and all of us whenever you go for a 5K. And it doesn't have to be a 5K. I mean, I don't really go for one. Yeah, it can be any like stroll through the park, whenever you go for a walk with your dog. It doesn't matter. Just share it with us, take a selfie. Great initiative, Phil, as I said. And I also like that you already shared your TechEd experience from last year with us. But how do you like the virtual TechEd so far? I guess I know you're CTO of Born Digital. Congratulations, by the way. You just recently got promoted.
Yeah, thank you. And part of my role now is to work with our customers to make sure they're getting the most out of their SAP Cloud Platform investment. So I'm really passionate about SAP Cloud Platform and all the great solutions we can bring to customers. And yeah, from what I've seen so far, you know, I was up at 3 a.m. Melbourne time to watch the keynote, Jürgen's keynote, and I thought it was amazing. I really like the mix of trying to talk about the challenges of the current time with COVID and, you know, more about the environment and just being socially conscious. I think that's really, it was a really great start. And also really like the Q&A sections afterwards with Jürgen and Thomas going through questions, the ability for attendees to ask questions and have them answered honestly, I thought was a really great concept. And I really thought the whole way that it worked was really good as well, with Craig and Beth in the studio and talking to them. Really great sort of two-way conversations. So yeah, so far I really enjoyed that, and I really like some of the announcements that came about, and a lot of them, which is great, is in my area that I look after, which is SAP Cloud Platform.
Couldn't agree more. I also think that having that Q&A expert session on the keynote was actually super highlight of yesterday's day. And wow, you actually got up at 3 a.m. this morning to watch the keynote? That's a real SAP Community fan, guys. That is awesome. I mean, I got up as well at 3 to be here today. But that's awesome.
Yes, I think tomorrow, yeah, there's another one tomorrow morning, obviously. So yeah, I'm gearing up to attend that live as well. I think really good to watch it live and yeah, just try and get the value out of it and make some notes as I'm sort of listening in. So I'm up to date with you know, when I have discussions around that with our customers.
That means no sleep for Phil for the next couple of hours, because he is watching all our live content on Channel 1. That's great.
Sleep is overrated, right? When you've got so many great sessions. Yeah, I noticed in the calendar there's a section that says sort of planned free time, but yeah, I haven't used that much. Too many great sessions.
Awesome, that's perfect. I know that you are a writer, and I know that you're blogging a lot in SAP Community. That was also part of my little introduction to you, because Phil is really one of our SAP Community members who is publishing a lot of blog posts. I was curious, how did you start blogging in SAP Community?
Yeah, good question, Lena. I think I found a couple of topics that weren't really covered a lot. And I knew they were areas that I had sort of issues with, sort of trying to get to work. So I thought if I had issues, then I'm sure other people in the SAP community would have the same issues. The other interesting blog posts I wrote were around open SAP courses. So as anyone would know, I tweet often around open SAP courses I really like, and I've got a hashtag with Faith Open SAP Slides. One of my hashtags I use on Twitter to basically provide a screenshot of the favorite slides I see from week to week in the courses that I do. So I also thought of writing blog posts about a review of those open SAP courses. And one of the major ones that I did last year, I think, or the year before, was Arnaud Dole's. He did one about Git, and I titled it, "This is not magic, this is Git." Which I really loved the saying, and yeah, it was very true. And that was one of my highlights of Open SAP. So I thought I would write about it. And yeah, as you said, I really like to write. And I think, you know, other than my technical skills and working with customers, I do like to write and make it interesting for those who want to read that material. So yeah, I started doing that and wrote about other Open SAP courses, and yeah, away you go, and you know, before you know, you've got a fair amount of blogs out there.
And Phil's blog posts are actually very interesting, especially because he's always looking for a catchy title. I love your titles. Can you give us a sneak peek about your next blog post that's coming up? Do you already have one of your catchy titles ready?
Yes, I have been, funny you mentioned that, I have been thinking, last year I did SAP TechEd 2019, what a blast. So I've got to come up with something better than that. I'm still thinking, I might actually give some clues over Twitter in the coming days and see if anyone can guess. Maybe that's a bit of a fun competition. Sorry, I can't give too much away on my writing and those catchy titles just yet.
No, not at all. I'm sure that you will, that you can come up with a catchy title from all that, like hashtags that are now live on Twitter as well. There are so many cool hashtags that are being used. More coming in our social media checks. Stay tuned. You're also actually announcing SAP Community events through your blog posts. And I know that you're one of our SAP Community members who is not only participating in SAP Community events, but also organizing them themselves, like yourself, right?
Yeah, last year was really great. The year before, we had a number of SAP Tech Nights, which basically go for 2 hours. And we ran 4 of them here in Melbourne. They had run before earlier, but sort of weren't a regular occurrence in the SAP community on a yearly basis. So I basically sort of made a challenge to myself to run a full day event, because I know around the world we have the SAP Inside Track events. So I wanted to move to see if I could organise a compelling event for a full day. And so last February, we had a SAP Inside Track full Melbourne event. And you can go to YouTube and look for those event replays. And we've also published them on opensip.net as well. So you can go and check them out. Some really great topics. There were some soft topics also covered, like how to manage tricky situations when talking to clients, how to take notes a little more effectively. We also had a session on agile development, but we also had more techie related sessions such as HANA DB with Lars Brederman, who's a major HANA developer. Mm-hmm. And so, next year, I'm starting to organise an event probably around March, April. I think I will get everyone together. So stay tuned for a blog post probably early in the new year around those sessions. So hopefully we can get a good number again next year. And really looking forward to the SAP community in Melbourne coming together, because we haven't been able to meet really in person. We had a couple of virtual events through this year. But really looking forward to seeing the SAP community members in Melbourne again coming together. Will be fantastic.
I'm glad you're mentioning that you transformed the physical SAP Inside Tracks in Melbourne into virtual versions. And we from SAP Community actually appreciate everyone who did so during the last couple of months. And we awarded them with a very special badge in the SAP Community. And I quickly want to show you guys what that badge looks like. If you haven't known yet, so we have missions and badges in the SAP Community, and you can just go to resources on community.sap.com and then click on missions and badges. Now you can see my screen. So here's all missions and badges that we have in the SAP Community. Phil is very familiar with it, and you can basically filter for event missions here on the right-hand side. And if you're scrolling down, almost to the very bottom, you see our Event Remaker 2020 badge. It's for everyone who organized, spoke at, or volunteered at any virtual SAP Community event from February 2020 onwards. And I just think it's great that you did the extra mile and the extra effort to actually transform such an event into a virtual one, and continued getting together the Australian community and meeting with them, and sharing your knowledge and expertise. I also wanted to briefly show you guys another badge that all of you have as you registered for SAP TechEd in 2020. It is our SAP TechEd in 2020 registered attendee badge. And if you're now thinking, wait a sec, where is that badge? I don't know where it is. It's easy to find it. Basically, you have to go to your avatar, which is on here on the right-hand side. Click on here and go to Manage My Account. You're now viewing your private dashboard. And in here, it's loading at the moment. Maybe go to this side, Manage My Account. You go to Account and Settings and to Privacy. Okay, this is loading now. Maybe this is with the connection here. But well, go to Account and Settings, Privacy, and ensure that the button beneath I want my profile to be visible to the public is clicked on. And then you're able to contribute in SAP Community, engage with SAP Community members, publish blog posts, ask questions, or start coffee corner discussions. Phil, back to you.
Just on mission and badges, I think it's really great to, everyone in life, whether it's personal or in working life, it is good to recognise others. So I really think, there's a lot of SAP community members that go, they have jobs as well and personal lives. So I think it is really great to recognise by the missions and badges and so forth in the community. So I think it's a really great thing to do.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that due to the events that you're actually hosting and participating in, you're very, very well connected throughout the Australian community. And I was wondering whether you heard from peers and friends already, like feedback and thoughts on SAP TechEd in 2020.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people I've been talking to definitely raised the Q&A. That was one of my highlights. And just the technology side of things, everyone's commented how seamless it operates and how professional it looks, and I think the biggest one obviously is everybody having access to it. As you know, usually you've got to sort of fly around the world to get access to these sort of great events. So I think having the sessions available, everyone can register all around the world, I think is a fantastic thing. So I think in the future, it will be interesting to see how these events go in terms of a model that maybe can offer both of those scenarios. And also, I think, checking the 47-page document of SAP TechEd 2020 announcements, I think is pretty crazy. I've shared it with my team here in Melbourne, and I know they're really keen on looking through all of those items. So I think, they're really excited for what the new developments are and what things are coming. I especially like the SAP API Business Hub that's got a new user experience. Obviously, with Born Digital, we work through and try and get the best user experience possible, being an App House partner. And so user experience is high on our agenda. So it was really good seeing some of those items mentioned around improvements to user experience. So there's some of the comments that I've heard from my colleagues around what they've liked so far.
Perfect. Awesome. Good to have that positive feedback. I was wondering as well, so I mentioned that you're an SAP champion and CTO of Born Digital. How do you balance those two responsibilities? I mean, SAP champions, as I said, are really our rock stars in the SAP community, real role models and great contributors. And Phil is one of them, and also dedicating a lot of his time to SAP community beside his full-time job. So I was wondering, Phil, how do you cope with that?
Yes, it is a bit tricky at times, obviously, just trying to do and manage time effectively. But essentially, I think there's synergies there. Like as CTO, I'm talking with customers and talking with, our developers and working through and architecting solutions on SAP Cloud Platform, which I'm really passionate about. and obviously working with customers to get the best out of that investment. And likewise, as SAP Champion, I'm there to help others, answering Cooley questions and writing blog posts on topics that I'm, actually working through in projects that I'm currently working on. So there's a lot of synergies between the roles. And yeah, it does get fairly hectic at times to sort of manage both. And I think I had a goal at the start of the year to write a lot of blog posts, a few a month and so forth. But with my CTO role, I've tried, it's been difficult to do. But essentially where I can give back, I try and give back to the community as well. Trying my best to do both of those roles to the best of my ability.
Yeah, you do that, and I really appreciate that you're taking your time, also being here with me in the live studio. There's a session coming up with another one of our SAP community members, and it's about integration, which is a topic that's very close to your heart, right? Can you share and give us a little sneak peek what that session is about?
Yeah, so tomorrow I'll be talking to Vadim, who's an expert in cloud platform integration. Really excited by integration. I think it's one of the key pillars of innovation. And I think, often customers have disparate systems and multiple source systems and don't really know sort of how to bring it together and bring about innovation. And I've got a couple of terms I'm looking forward to, in the next, 12 months to even looking further out there is super apps and hyper automation. And I think cloud platform integration will, is a hot topic. And I think that will really, take off. And I think that in session tomorrow, he really gets down into the detail for integration developers and gives them a feel for some of the topics they need to be sort of looking into. And if you can tune in tomorrow, I'm interviewing Vadim with a couple of key questions and really interesting. I learned and I'll be learning a lot out of that session. So I hope others in the SAP community will do the same.
Yeah, I will do, of course. And I hope you guys also put that on your schedule. Last question for you, Phil. What are you watching for your prime time later? What's next on your agenda?
Anything basically in integration or workflow management or RPA, any process automation. I'm really keen next year to explore that with a lot of our customers because I think still too many processes are manual. And later tonight, I've got a colleague of mine, Mike Doyle, basically running a session on Channel 1 as well. So again, supporting other SAP community members that write blogs and the colleagues, I think it's really important to support them. So I'll be, maybe drinking a red wine in that session. So, it'd be good to enjoy his session and others, going into the night tonight.
Oh, I would love to join you for that red wine, actually.
Will be definitely good. I'll make sure it's a good year. Says I don't discriminate, so any one of those should be good.
Perfect, lovely. Yeah, enjoy the rest of SAP TechEd in 2020 and all the great content that is out there. Thanks a lot, Phil, for taking your time. I really appreciate, with that busy schedule that you have, being here with me in the live studio and also participating in another SAP community talk with Vadim. Take good care.
Thanks, Lena, you too. And for those that haven't run the 5K or walk 5K or how many Ks, post it as Lena said, and really look forward to some photos of others around the world. So thank you for having me and take care, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Phil. All right, so thanks for having those insights from Phil. around what is happening in Australia and the local community over there. Next on the agenda is our expert talk on the Developer Keynote, and I'll hand over to Max.
Thanks, Lena. We will have next up, as we had the Developer Keynote, our expert panel. It's not an expert talk. Sorry to correct you here, Lena. It's my job to correct you whenever it's needed. No, I'm kidding. We will have next with us DJ Adams as one of the developers in the Developer Keynote. We have Matt Harding as a SAP solution UX development architect and developer as an independent consultant. I'm very honored to also welcome Lucia Subatin, a solutions architect and Google Cloud. I'm quite proud that I pronounced the name right, hopefully. And Thomas Hertz, head of SAP Cloud Platform Runtimes and core of SAP. And I'm absolutely excited that we have so many developer skills in one SAP TechEd house. With that, let's welcome our guests. That's all live. Hey folks, I hope you're doing fine. You're all looking great wherever you are in the world. We have quite some time zones covered. I know it's hard for everybody of us, but so glad to see you. To kick it off, I just had a conversation with Matt between the Developer Keynote, and he had a similar question as Menina just a couple of seconds ago. Was that your MacBook, DJ, which was destroyed by some coffee?
When I saw that, but actually it wasn't mine. It was a clip added by the producers, pretty awesome clip. And I noticed very briefly that it wouldn't have been a MacBook I could have used anyway. Could anybody tell why? Put it on the social media if you could figure out why it would be a laptop I could not use. Good lead, DJ.
Because you use Windows.
Well, that's a good answer, but no, something slightly different. It was a MacBook, but something up with a keyboard.
And I need to interrupt because that discussion would lead to nowhere with DJ, I guess. But in all seriousness, what was the overall message of the Developer Keynote? If somebody wants to take that one,
I can take this one. I mean, the message is clear. I think we are open in SAP, so there is not the one size fits all in projects. You have different skill sets. You even use different computers like Macs and Windows. You use VI or you use Visual Studio Code. Different programming languages from Java to Node.js to whatever. ABAP if you have the skill set in it, and that's reality. So and we need to offer something for all of them. And that was shown in this keynote. So from cloud native, really cloud native work with Kubernetes directly to ABAP, it was all in. So that's the message, I would say.
One thing I noticed, we've seen Kima presented in previous keynotes, but this is the first time I've seen CAP running on Kima. Is that right?
Yeah. True. That was nice. Very lovely to see, because CAP is not bound to Cloud Foundry, for example. CAP can run on Kima, basically everywhere.
Yeah, in fact, we could have run CAP on Cloud Foundry, but actually in the storyline, it was Kevin, our cloud native developer. He was responsible for our DevOps and runtime strategy, right, for the apps and services, and he decided on Kima, which was a great decision. And so that's what we used. But if you look, and in fact, if you look in the repo, in the GitHub repository that we've now made live with all the code and stuff, you can see that the CAP application started its life running locally. Then you can run it, then we ran it in a Docker container locally. Then we ran it in Cloud Foundry because we can. And then we pushed the container to Kima and ran it there. So, it was a pretty straightforward deployment too. So really, if you look at the repo as well, you'll see that all these different possibilities are there for you.
Mm. We saw a lot more than Kima.
Sorry, I was going to say that all of that is possible because you have a message bus in the center, right? So maybe we should dig a little deeper into that piece. I think it's pretty relevant to the demo you guys did.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't the center, and for a reason, because we have all these different possibilities also in the different languages that we use. For the ones who don't know what a message bus is, I assume, because it's the developer keynote that most of us know, but in fact, I mean, this should be used instead of having now point-to-point connections between different applications. So you rather connect to a message bus, you rather work asynchronously. You do not need to know who will listen to you. So that's the fact. So you push events out or you react on events. And with this is that made it possible here, what we've done. Yeah.
Lucia, to you from a Google perspective, you also have like a non-SAP view on that. What does it mean for you?
Yes, it actually called my attention because at Google we use, even for SAP, we use PubSub or publish and subscribe, and that's a widely adopted pattern that we use when we have microservices that need to talk to each other but do not really need to be concerned about how the receiving ends receives the messages. So it's a great application, and we use it for SAP customers. We use it internally at Alphabet. Our parent company has a massive SAP deployment. And our S/4HANA system, for example, when we have an event that's related to inventory, we publish that message, or S/4HANA publishes the message that, for example, we have a new computer for Lucia into a topic, and any application that is surrounding that S/4HANA system and is building an application there is subscribed to the topic and will basically do whatever it needs to do with that information.
Well, sort of like in a hand wavy way, right? You can see that the message bus that we used, which is of course provided by SAP Enterprise Messaging, it's basically about providing the glue, the messaging substrate, right? In any given solution. There was one particular thing that is worth pointing out, and I think Matt, you were referring to that before, which was not everything in the demo was running on Kyma. In fact, our message bus, the instance of SAP Enterprise Messaging, is running on Cloud Foundry, and the message there, I guess, no pun intended, is that you don't have to pick one runtime and stick with it. Like Thomas said before, the cloud platform is open. But also, by the way, I can hear something in the background in my ear somewhere.
Another expert, I think.
Another expert that wants to get in on the conversation. This is the best conversation on a Wednesday morning, right? Where else would you want to be? But just to sort of bring us back down to realizing the whole idea of PubSub. Lucia, you mentioned PubSub being a really important pattern, right? In terms of enterprise messaging, to put that into concrete terms, and we saw that in the keynote as well. You have the concept of topics, and you have the concept of queues, and the queues are where the messages sort of live, and the topics are things that you publish a message to, or you subscribe to messages as well. So the whole idea of PubSub is very alive and well in, for example, SAP's enterprise messaging service that is there, and that's what we used as well, right?
Right, and this is not a new pattern, by the way. I think I'm going to date myself here and mention how back in the SOA days, when SOA was a hype, we had the enterprise service bus, I think it was. I remember playing with it and receiving messages from an SAP Banking Services instance, and this was way, at least 10 years ago. So this is a robust pattern that has been around for a while, and of course we have implemented it now for microservices to talk to each other in a decoupled way.
I have a question in between. Sorry, Dietrich, to interrupt you. I would have...
Go for it, Max.
I do want to have a right to be in this expert panel as well as a moderator. Sorry for that. If you're talking about this glue between each other, do you have a common protocol, or how do we know how we talk to each other using the enterprise messaging bus?
Max, we cannot hear you. It seems like the other voice in the background is louder than you.
All right.
Yeah, I've just sent a message to the studio. I think they're coming into our feed and we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
While we're waiting. Oh, yep, now we can hear you.
Perfect. All right. My question was actually about, you said about the glue between each other and to have kind of like an asynchronous way to communicate with each other. But is there a way how we specify how we communicate, like in terms of a of a schema or something?
You're referring to cloud events, for example?
Exactly, that was my leading question.
Yeah, that is a way, an industry standard, so how to specify the payload, how it looks like. That's what we are using, and obviously, also in addition, before I go into details it's very important because you only can use events if you know where they are and what kind of topics and detail you described it. So you need to know what topics are there and so on. And in that sense, what was used here is the API Business Hub. Even though it's called API Business Hub, it is more getting towards also an API and event or even data model business hub. So that's the place where you can find all of the APIs that SAP systems offer, or the events as well. So exactly what we're talking about here, or even data models. So that's the central place from where you can start here.
Yeah, when we were building the thing, I was pleasantly surprised to find a pretty rich set of information about all the standard events. The S4 HANA Cloud events, the sales order. We use a sales order created, but also we used that same model, that same approach with the same properties to create our own custom event as well. I think we saw in the keynote that we did that internal charity fund increased event along exactly the same lines, and that works in exactly the same way. We published an event message based upon that event definition, that cloud event definition, and it's I don't know about you folks, but from when we were building this, there's a lot of moving parts, which is not unusual, but it was so much easier to just think in your own terms because everything was asynchronous, so you didn't have to worry about coordination as much as you would normally do if things were synchronous, right? In fact, the only synchronous call, I think, was the call from the CAP brain, to the conversion service.
There are things where synchronous makes sense.
Yes, of course.
Also putting money on my bank account should be synchronous, probably. While there are other topics here that should end, and we have to work asynchronously. Yeah, agree.
Can I jump in? One of the things I noticed, you saw S4 HANA was in the API Business Hub, and I'm wondering, for those customers out there that are still running on-premise, which is most of us, I believe, when is it going to be the right time to start considering moving, to CAP or RAP, and to to actually start putting our data outside of S4 HANA, and all our code and business logic that, so we're not clouding the core anymore.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. And I mean, that's the question of side-by-side extensibility, how we also call it. So you want to keep what you said, you want to keep the core clean. You have a system, it's a large system. Now you want to work outside of it and then want to develop code. What we basically did here, not modify S4, but rather work on the side. To be honest, it doesn't matter now whether you have an on-prem system or a cloud system. You can start now. You can and should do the same what we've done here in the Developer Keynote. So give it a try. Look at all these technologies that are out there. There's already a lot. You would see much more coming also on the roadmap. But we believe that's the place to be. So keep the core clean, do side-by-side extensibility, work with events, and also with this connect obviously on-prem systems and not just cloud systems.
So we saw Kevin use Go to do the credit calculation. What's stopping anyone using Java, Miranda, C#? Or is that the point?
That is the point, really. I mean, of course, we have Steampoint, we have the ABAP on SAP Cloud Platform, which of course, suggests that you write an ABAP if you're using that, and that's what Rich did. But that's partly the point, right? When we first saw the idea of multi-language with Cloud Foundry, with the different build packs and everything, and it's exploded even further with Kima and with Kubernetes. So it really all depends on what you as an organization want to think about. There's developer skills, there's strategy, there may be a language strategy elsewhere in the organization that you want to follow or you want to not follow. So it depends on a lot of factors. For example, I know that Go, the language that Kevin used for the conversion service, that's a super strong language in the cloud generally, and also specifically in DevOps as well. So, maybe that's my language to look into for 2021. But the platform is wide open, right, for language choice.
I think DJ, this is you're preaching my song here, because I love helping developer communities come into SAP, and this is the kind of thing that makes it possible, because you're talking about Kubernetes, you're talking about kubectl, Schema, that is I understand is based on Knative. We have our own offering based on Knative, so doing that translation, because we're using open platforms, is very easy. The one thing that you're mentioning is choice, and it's funny. I come from an ABAP background, and when we were at ABAP, we didn't have that much of a choice. It was very prescriptive, right? So we were told in which language and in which platform to code and how to integrate with other systems. And here you can choose, right? And as you say, it should be an educated choice, and that brings the responsibility on the developer to understand, to educate themselves, of course, and then to understand what is good for the problem they want to solve and for the organization that they're in. And that's a big change that I see with the SAP developers. The other thing is that I think goes hand in hand is a culture shift internally. So I think we all come from implementing in waterfall projects and very lengthy development life cycles. And with microservices, because the risk is smaller, because you're touching less functionality, you have the opportunity to be more agile, to deliver business value sooner, and to get the user involved sooner. And that's one thing that it blows my mind, and I think is a great thing that SAP is embracing each time more.
I can only second this, if I may add. It's you said it, more choice as before. So ABAP was a closed set, and it worked, and it was very successful for sure. But in the cloud world, we believe it just changes, and with this option that you have, and the possibilities also to use microservice and so on, you need to change. But with it also comes burden, obviously, and then you need to have, as you said, an educated choice. And also we as SAP want to guide, obviously, more, because not everybody feels comfortable with it. So what do I use now? Yeah, should I use Schema Kubernetes? Should I use ABAP? So here in that developer keynote, it was more based on really skill set. DJ, you love Go, that's why you use Go. But that's not obviously the only point of how you should choose. Also certain applications, so very scalable web applications, some languages are better for it than others. So and we want to obviously need to help our customers to do this choice and how to do it best. But in the end, it's just good to have it, and then with this new mindset, I think that's the way forward. Yeah.
I've got to jump in again. Can I just quickly ask? So you've probably quadrupled your developer resources if you take this approach. So is there any sort of common architectural pieces you should put together that are critical for success?
That's a super question. And I think
Enterprise Service Bus.
Enterprise Service Bus it always factors in my architectural diagrams these days. But I think maybe an answer to your question, Matt, lies also in what Thomas just now and Lucia just now was referring to. For me, it's almost like the sort of two sides of the same coin: the agony and the ecstasy of choice, right? And in order to sort of harness that ecstasy, you need these. Like you call them, the architectural pieces. Like, for example, okay, what are the common runtimes? What are the open protocols that we're going to be using? So, for example, you mentioned enterprise messaging. So, AMQP, as this is a protocol around which we will gather. In the same way that HTTP is an application protocol around which we will gather as well. But I mean, there's also other things as well, and I'm sure that Lucia and Thomas have things to say about this. But basically, I'm thinking of shared philosophies and shared tool chains, right? It goes beyond. I think what you have to do from an organization perspective is just think beyond the level of any particular language. So shared philosophies, shared programming models, for example, domain-driven development, as exemplified by CAP, specifically for me here, that's a critical factor. There's also shared tool chains, as Lucia you were just saying, right? You've got these microservices and you've got a lot more smaller, more agile things going on at the same time. So what's perhaps more important or as important to me is how do we do this consistently? How do we do this consistently across teams and sort of vertically as well, with DevOps, with continuous integration, continuous delivery, and so on, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you have to set the boundaries of how services and teams interact. So that's important. So even though we have a different choice in the teams, but then, and you talked about this. What's the product? What's the API that you talk to? What's the standards that you use for eventing and so on? So that's the important point where you have to set standards, because if services cannot talk to each other, then obviously it doesn't help.
Actually, one of the, just on what that, Thomas, that you've reminded me, one of the things that maybe has been almost like implicit these days, people have been saying like every year for the past N years, oh, this is the year of the API, this is the year of the API. And of course, it has been, but actually, I think for me, this year has been the year of API Hub, as in it's bringing the whole concept of APIs to the table, to that conversation, that same conversation, I think, Matt, that you're referring to in the organization, in the enterprise. So while we were developing the stuff for the keynote, we also centered on all the information in the API Hub, the SAP API Business Hub, which was great. And again, APIs is another sort of architectural factor in my mind to bring these things together as, to help an organization move into this new world.
Yeah, that's key, DJ, I think. So at Google, we have this very API-driven, API-first mindset. And the way it works, even with SAP, is that we expect to have an API that tells us the status of the system, that tells us how the service is running, and that is consistent across the entire organization. So I do not need to talk to a developer of any specific system to understand that the API will give me the status of a specific microservice. That also means, as you were saying, automation, right? Automation becomes very important. So if you can have a machine checking on another machine and automating the processes for deployment, for delivery, for testing, then you have less load for developers too. This is a whole new topic on itself, right? I mean, you mentioned CI/CD, DevOps, and site reliability engineering, but going back to the change of cultures, what I would like to mention too is, first, not everything needs to be a microservice. I know this may be an unpopular opinion, but don't kill the monolith at first. And second, for what I've seen with our customers that have an SAP system and want to start doing all of these things, it's there. You guys are showing it. They can test it. I mean, you've been talking about the trial too. They can also, of course, test it on Google Cloud, and it's there. And I would highly encourage all of the developers out there to get started on this, because it's super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, get your hands dirty. I mean, one of the things that the team have really worked hard on is making sure that the stuff that we built for the Developer Keynote, is made available publicly, which it is, but code by itself and configuration by itself, okay, it might be the most important thing to have, but it's a lot less useful without guides and documentation. So we've been sort of throwing documentation into the repo as well over the past week or two, and we would really encourage people to fork that repo, clone it down, get the stuff downloaded, start going through all the different components, and just get the dirt under your fingernails. Just start to feel this.
Obviously, point out the errors that you did, things you didn't look into. So that's what.
Exactly. Yeah. So in fact, that's a fantastic point. There's a number of we decided to call them Easter eggs. Basically, it's like code that doesn't work. Not really. No. There are some Easter eggs in there. There's even an Easter egg in the video as well, or at least one Easter egg in the video. So yeah, see if you can spot these different weirdnesses in the code or the comments or whatever. But just enjoy it, because there was a question during the Developer Keynote that the team was answering about how do I get started, right? And the best way to get started is just to get started, right? And this is why we've built the repo as it is, so we can clone it and actually start from scratch. And in fact, Matt, you were asking the question about the different runtimes and everything, and I was rambling on about the CAP application started live running locally. If you look at the README for that particular CAP application, the brain component, as we called it, it shows you how to run it locally, how to run it in a Docker container, how to push that Docker container to GitHub container registry, how to get Kima to pull that into Kima to run it on Kubernetes, and also to deploy it to Cloud Foundry, because why not? And so, hopefully it will help folks, get started if they're looking to do that.
A good point, DJ, you just made here.
So the Easter egg was a European keyboard? So it's the Easter egg, was it a European keyboard? Is that why you couldn't do it? It's not yours?
Awesome, Matt. Yes, it was a French keyboard, Azerty, where I did, in my consulting days, I did work a lot in France, and I was horrified to see my lack of skill, because you have to press Shift to get the numbers across the top row. It's like, what? So yeah, I wouldn't be using that.
No.
Just to pull it in that I don't lose my job as a moderator. I do have two last questions, because we are sadly running out of time, and I know you guys could keep talking for hours, and that's super interesting for me as well. I could just lean back and listen. But one point Fox made on social media that, as you just said, DJ, they want to get started. Do you have any guidance in a sense of what tool they should use? We covered a lot of tools, but what's your take? Not only DJ, probably also Thomas.
Thomas, do you want to go first?
Go first. I want to check what you're saying.
Okay. Well, obviously, I don't know whether this is a question from my good friend Max as a plant, but obviously the only tool you need is a terminal, right? Just get a bash shell, as you saw in the keynote as well. What Lucia was saying about APIs and everything, you can build everything with whatever you want, bash shell scripting, whatever. So seriously though, the Business Application Studio, if you want to start anywhere, start with that. That gives you a proper shell, it gives you a proper terminal, it gives you all the tools. And yeah, just have a look through the repo documentation. These are all the tools that you'll need are described there. For example, the CF tool, the kubectl tool, and so on.
And that's the beauty. You can have different opinions. I would obviously say go with Visual Studio Code, or what most, at least the customers I know work with, developers. Just test it in the cloud native way. So go with Kubernetes, give it a try. It's worth getting into this topic for sure. But then use these lovely libraries on top that we offer as SAP. You did not even touch, I think, for example, the Cloud SDK, how to connect from an API perspective to S4, or even the CAP on top. It's not this or this. You have to choose. It's more you can also combine these topics, and that's the nice thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, that's a good point, because when we were connecting to the SAP S/4HANA Cloud system, we were implicitly using the Cloud SDK, which we didn't mention, but that's part of CAP now, which is fantastic.
And I have to interrupt here because we are running out of time. I have to thank you guys, including Lucia, not guys, Fox, for coming on, taking your time across all the time zones. And I hope you have a brilliant TechEd further on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'd like to wrap it up. A lot of food for thoughts. If you want to reach out to them, they are all on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever it is. And we'll see each other in the next hour. Stay tuned and see you in a bit.